Let's bring in our panel. This is a lot of conversation heading into the weekend here, whether or not this deal can get done. John Burns is the strategic director at Concerned Voices for America and a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, also National Guard. Janatan Sayeh is an Iran program research analyst for the Foundation of Defense of Democracies, and Bill Brown is a retired U.S. Navy SEAL. Great to have you all here. Let's start, Jonathan. On the heels of this ceasefire announcement between Israel and Lebanon, the Israeli forces, they put this out to X. It reads in part, in two separate incidents, Hezbollah terrorists, they launched these rockets and an explosive UAV toward the IDF soldiers operating south of the forward defense line in southern Lebanon. Now, these actions constitute blatant violations of the ceasefire understanding. So we have this ceasefire in place, but I mean, how firm is it? And will it hold over the next 3 weeks so that they can get this agreement done?
We're looking more at a fragile truce rather than a ceasefire, but Tehran is behaving similarly. The only difference here is that at least when negotiating with the Lebanese, it was a bilateral understanding that the ceasefire should be re-extended. Whereas on the other hand, the Islamic Republic did not even acknowledge the extension of the ceasefire and continued hostilities in the Persian Gulf by targeting vessels once again and using its proxies to attack Bahrain and using its Iraqi PMF militias for other malign activities. Like father, like son, Hezbollah or the Islamic Republic in both cases want to portray an image of a ceasefire, whereas in reality they do want to escalate, and that's going to be a main challenge moving forward, not to mention the additional demands that Iranians are putting on the table, something that was not even part of the conversation, such as any agreement extending to its proxies as well.
Bill, talk to me about the threat that we still have from some of Iran's asymmetric naval tactics that they're using, including these fast attack, I should say, swarm fleets, the unmanned surface vessels, and then the coastal anti-ship missiles. So even though the Navy's sort of done with, they've got a lot of weapons that can do some significant damage still.
Well, one of the advantages that the United States Navy has, and one of the brilliant tactics that President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have promoted, is this blockade. Because the way the blockade does is it uses all our technology, all our abilities to our maximum advantage. So it's further out. So those speedboats and drones, that capabilities is severely negated. Now let's talk about the big picture here. Let's talk about the fact that IRGC is losing between 300,000 to 500,000 barrels of oil a day because of that blockade. That's approximately 435 million per day. Guess what? The IRGC soon will not be able to pay for its proxies of horror, will not be able to pay for its patronage jobs. It's on the verge of economic collapse.
Great point. You know, you hit them economically now. I mean, if they're going to drag this out, well, we're going to drag that out, too. And you're not going to get any more money, $400 million a day. I want to go back, though, to Secretary of War Hegseth. He had a press conference here at the Pentagon this morning, and he says we're not getting enough support from our allies. Watch this.
Europe and Asia have benefited from our protection for decades, but the time for free riding is over. America and the free world deserve allies who are capable, who are loyal, and who understand that being an ally is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. We are not counting on Europe, but they need the Strait of Hormuz much more than we do, and might want to start doing less talking and having less fancy conferences in Europe and get in a boat. This is much more their fight than ours.
It's a great point. Secretary Hegseth, and I mean, President Trump has brought this up before as well. He says, you know, we need help. Is it too late for the other allies to jump in? And do we actually need their help? I know President Trump wants the help, but do we actually need it there, John?
Well, I think the allies, Secretary Hegseth's right. The allies have not stepped up for years, and the Strait of Hormuz is absolutely their problem. And from my point of view, it should remain their problem. We do not need to spend a lot of time, a lot of energy there. Our allies should take a signal. We should have Congress execute its powers coming up next week. War powers hits its 60-day mark. Congress should weigh in. The American people aren't in love with this war, and I don't think we should just get the allies to help us. I think our allies should be responsible for securing that Strait of Hormuz. It's their trade pipeline. We have plenty of energy here at home, and yes, it's a global market, but their supplies come from there. They don't need to just step up and help. That's one of the key regions where they need to absolutely take the lead.
Yeah, it seemed like they were a little bit bent out of shape because they hadn't been consulted about the action ahead of time. And so then they said, well, it's not our war. Jonathan, I want you to listen a little more from Secretary Hegseth. He spoke about the ongoing negotiations with Iran. Listen.
President Trump said it again yesterday. We have all the time in the world, and we're not anxious for a deal. And I hear him say it every day in private as well. Iran knows that they still have an open window to choose wisely. As we said previously, choose wisely at the negotiating table. All they have to do is abandon a nuclear weapon in meaningful and verifiable ways, or instead they can watch their regime's fragile economic state collapse under the unrelenting pressure of American power. A blockade as long as it takes, whatever President Trump decides.
Those comments come just as we're learning that Iran's foreign minister will be traveling to Pakistan for ceasefire talks with the U.S. Now, is this a sign, Jonathan, that Iran is finally buckling? Because, I mean, they've been trying to get the president to say, OK, I'll lift the blockade. And he's just said, no, not until you say you're serious about this. What do you think? How do you read it?
Well, let's see if Iranians are going to behave any differently than they already have. It's tough to really get any concessions or behavior change from the Islamic Republic. But what Secretary Hegseth noted was quite significant regarding the timing. The way this administration has flipped the script on Tehran will be the winning hand here, because it's effectively putting the Islamic Republic in a lose-lose situation. On one hand, if they want to drag out talks like they always do, they would be losing hundreds of millions of dollars every day. And of course, their economy is certainly their Achilles heel. Second to that, let's say if they want to retaliate and escalate, then they're going to be the one making that mistake, instigating it, and that's what they've already done. So the real question is, how are we going to respond to that? The way they reacted in the Strait of Hormuz after a ceasefire extension was announced, taking the path of escalation, really leaves us with one option. So the question is, should we re-engage the Islamic Republic? How we want to go about it? If we want to have a prolonged version of the existing war, or is it going to be more decisive, targeting Iranian regime from the inside?
That's a great point. You know, we agree to the ceasefire, and then they go and they start, attacking ships. Right. We appreciate your time this morning. John Burns, Janatan Sayeh, and Bill Brown. Thank you.
Thank you.